Beyond the Wild.
Welcome to Beyond the Wild podcast. This week we've got Jason Loftus, myself, Ron Hayes, and Mark Raycroft. And Mark looks like he's having computer problems. Nope, he's good. Fist pump.
No, it's good. Yeah, no, I remember to turn off the Wi-Fi on other devices just this second so I can maximize speed here in Canada. Nice to see you guys.
Tonight's good to see you. It's good to be seen.
Yeah, good morning. I'm glad I'm not the pixelated image coming through. I was so worried about that. Yeah, being in Africa and everything, you know.
You may be before it's all said and done. And you all just noticed that there is one of these things is not like the others. Yeah. Our guest tonight is coming to us from tomorrow morning in South Africa. Cameron Scott.
Yeah.
Cam, how you doing?
Great, guys. It's 4:11 a.m. in the future. On what is it? Thursday the 6th. And I'm doing good.
And we're recording on Wednesday the 5th. I think it's the first time we've done a podcast from the future with a future guest.
Yeah.
Is that, you guys remembered anything like that before? Mm-mm. Or is this a first? Because we want to note all the firsts and make sure we recognize.
I'd like to be a first something on the podcast. I got to be honest.
You might be the first South African.
I'll keep taking stuff off the list, which is good.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. I don't think there has been anybody in the future like this before. I mean, we've talked with people who've traveled to different places around the world, but not been there at the time of recording, and so committed to be up at 4 a.m. to join us. Thanks, man.
Man, let me tell you, it's such a pleasure to meet you all, guys. I was up at 3 a.m. Trying not to wake my wife up. But I was up at 3 a.m. just to make sure everything was running smoothly, and seems to be. So happy to be here.
That's really kind of you, man.
Hey, Jason, we have one more first tonight.
Oh, what is it?
We have our first. How do I want to put this? I don't want it to sound like it's anything negative, but Mark has a fan that tried to purchase pictures of Mark in the field from a tour operator.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a little
talked to
confused.
Drew Hamilton today. I talked to Drew Hamilton today, and he had a guest that wanted pictures of Mark from the field.
Wow.
Mark,
let's not tell Mark who it was. Let's let him stew on it.
Oh, no, for sure.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Billy.
Yeah, right.
You won. Billy, you won. No worries, but Mark has fans.
But so you haven't made it until someone wants pictures of you without you knowing.
I'm honored and flattered, I think. Yeah.
That was the first. We were mentioning the first, so I couldn't go without bringing that to the attention of everyone else.
I love the negative, the concern about being negative.
Well, I didn't want to say groupie. I didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
Groupie kind of has a negative connotation.
Yeah,
right?
True. No, that's not necessarily the case.
So that's not the case. A fan.
Yeah.
All right. Back to Cam. We woke him up at 3:00 in the morning. I guess we better get back to Cam, but
I'm pretty impressed at what I look like. I thought I would look like a car wreck at 3 a.m. You know, I'm getting older every day. It's my birthday on Sunday. Just one day I woke up and it's always funny. I find I was chatting to a good friend of mine because we're traveling a lot more and we're on camera a lot more. And you look at yourself and you think, I feel pretty decent. I look pretty good. I'm going to put myself out there to the world, and I send a selfie on Instagram or something. And I'm like in Africa doing my thing, loving life, whatever. And get a few comments back from people that have followed me over the years. They're like, "Shame, Cam, you look so tired. Are you okay?" And I'm like, what the hell is going on? You put yourself out there, you feel good, and then you get these comments back. So I was worried I'd have these massive bags this morning, but I'm feeling okay.
So I'm gonna go ahead and throw this out there real quick. So Cam and I met Jason and Carla Cox put a trip together to Brazil, and that was through Cam. Amy Harris went with us as well, and so we went along with Cam. Cam's the group leader, right? And so I'm just going to say you look more awake right now than you did the day that you were late getting to the boat.
I knew you were going to bring up this moment. I was thinking about it. I was like, nah, he's not going to bring up the day I was late at the boat.
Can rest assured, anything negative, I will bring it up in the podcast. Saying, Cameron?
Are you videoing?
Yeah.
I said as soon as I put this shirt on, our luck changed, so I'm going to have to wear it for the next week. So please don't judge me.
Yeah, we'll take the stench.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got a long podcast coming up. That's all right. We had a few moments for sure. You know, it was one of those moments where I was like, okay, so I've been on time every single morning. Everyone seems to be sort of arriving at the same time, if not after me. And it was a tripod. I was carrying my tripod, and then I realized I'm kind of 5 minutes walk away longer than everybody else. So I started running there. And of course, you know, Murphy's Law, I looked at the boat and everyone's sitting there like twiddling their thumbs. And not only that, we were the last boat to leave the hotel that morning. Everyone had gone out in front of us. So I think it had some advantages strategically. I think we actually saw some great stuff that day. You know, timing's everything. So it was done on purpose, I think.
We saw great stuff every day. So
yeah, and of course running, I mean, I've got a video. Ron was recording me running with all my gear in my hands, in my flip-flops to the boat, and he was filming the whole thing. So
yeah, and Cam was asking me not to, but I got it.
Yeah, yes, he did.
Surprise.
Ron also likes to get these photographs when you don't think he's taking photographs of you, and then post it on the group so everyone can see your face all contorted and. Oh, gosh, yeah. I mean, these trips are, as much as they're about the wildlife and exploring, I think the people that you're with and the memories and the laughs make it. So, you know, you got to be on board with that type of thing.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you guys were. So that just to kind of introduce you to everyone else, Cam, you do trips all over the place, but how did you get started? What got you into nature photography?
Gosh, great question. I, being born and bred in South Africa, it's part of our culture to most of us to be connected to nature in some form because it's on our doorstep pretty much. Not how some people think. We don't have lions and elephants walking through our streets. You know, we actually live in a city and there's cars and there's tarmac and all the good things. But I've been traveling to Kruger National Park and to other bush locations literally since I was born with my father, and something just stuck. You know, we would go 2-3 times a year, and I got to be a young teenager, and I remember buying my first little disposable like Fuji plastic yellow camera. And photographing everything. You know, you had like 50 exposures on the film back then, and I was just like photographing everything. And I remember clearly my dad giving me such a hard time about it because I would lean out the window, look down at the road with a tortoise with my camera that can't zoom or anything and just snap like 5 shots of the same thing. And he's trying to explain to me that when it gets exposed, I'm going to have this little dot on the road. But, you know, it didn't matter because I had to see it. So, like, that's where it started. And it was mainly to bring back the memories to my mom because she didn't travel all the time with me. So it was more about bringing back what we saw, and it just kind of became second nature. And I decided very early on, straight after school, wasn't too focused on my grades. It was more about getting into the wild as soon as I can. So I studied photography straight out of high school, and I enrolled I did wedding photography and everything we used to do, functions, events. Basically opened up Google one day, typed in FGASA courses, which is FGASA, the Field Guide Association of Southern Africa. And something popped up, and I remember watching a show on TV about Caught in the Act, where guides and trackers and people in the bush had caught some crazy stuff on film. And a lodge popped up that I recognized, and then the same lodge popped up on Google saying they're offering courses. At the time, my son was 6 months old. My partner at the time had no idea what I was doing. I remember I literally minimized Photoshop, all the wedding photos I was doing. I was drowning in wedding photos. I hated life at the time. And I sent this guy an email named Alan, and he ended up being my mentor. Reached out, he asked for a motivational letter. I sent a motivational letter why I wanted to do this, and they got back to me within like 2 days and said, "We'd love to meet you. Can you come out?" It's a 5-hour drive to the Sabi Sand, which is a private reserve, which basically joins the Kruger National Park. It forms part of Greater Kruger National Park, and I then had to break it to my family that I've got this interview in a couple of days' time, and no one knew anything about it. I was kind of keeping it to myself. There was like 75 of us interviewed. We ended up, 5 of us ended up being chosen, and we lived in a tent in the Sabi Sand, completely in the wild for 6 months. And I was fortunate enough to finish top of my class, and I got the job at the lodge and basically started there. It was 2013, and I've never looked back.
I mean, that involves some pretty major life changes. Did you guys move to the lodge?
Left my son and future wife, I guess, at the lodge, at home, while I worked at the lodge. And we would work 6 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So Sunday to Monday, every day for 6 weeks, and then you go home for 2 weeks. Did that for a few years. Relationship never survived, but we're good friends. And my son's just as crazy as I am about all things wild, and he wants to take over from me one day. So he's really he's into me growing the business, because I could see he's got this interest in just taking over. Mm-hmm. So yeah, life changes, but let me tell you, every change that I had was for the better. I think if you can align yourself with your passions in some form, it's life changing, because everything just seems to flow. You're not swimming against the currents anymore. So, everything changed. I met some incredible people, made some friends with some clients that are still dear friends to me today. I've been guiding one family whose son was 9 years old when I met him, and I just hosted him just the end of last year in Zimbabwe, and he is now turning 22 this year. He's got a little beard and everything, and I couldn't believe it. So it's been amazing. Just the locations, the opportunities. You guys know as well as I do. When you're in nature, just everything makes sense. And it's the best decision I ever did. I knew that moment when I was opening up Google and doing this, that if I didn't do it then, I feel like I may have been stuck for a long time in the wrong place. So it all worked out in the end.
I'm going to hope that none of my employers are listening right now, but I can relate to that.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything. Keep your day job and start focusing on passions elsewhere, just to make your life a little bit happier.
Mm-hmm. So then where did you go from that lodge? Because you've been all over Africa now, and you're doing trips all over Africa. got images from all over Africa.
Yeah.
How long did it take for things to expand?
Look, I think, we all have this journey, and I went from being a lodge employee, where you're the guide and everything, to making a lot of friends. And basically one family that I'm very, very close to, they came back to me and they said, Cam, we want to go see gorillas. It was one of my dreams as well, to go walk with hike the mountain gorillas in Rwanda. And I'm like, guys, that's amazing. And they said, but we want you to be with us. And I said, well, I work for this lodge, and that's where I am. And they're like, we don't care. Can you make a plan? And it was a combined trip with the Great Migration on the Tanzanian side in the Serengeti, which was just a dream for me to hear these things. And they want me to go with. Like, we're going to pay for you to be there. We want you to be with us. We want you to be our guide. And it was that moment where I just had to make the decision to leave everything I knew and that safety net of a salary and everything, and make the jump. So that was my first big trip. It put a bit of funds in my pocket, enough to kind of survive, very frugally, but survive for some time. And I was just very blessed that their referral business kicked on quite well. And it was a bunch of pilots for Delta at the time. They were traveling in and out of Africa, and they'd spend a couple of days with me. And it just afforded me the opportunity to meet some more people, get my name out there. I think, so that's been since, I'd say, 2016 on and off. I decided to launch my own business and an actual, as a luxury tour operator, focusing on all of Africa, on February 2020, about a month before COVID really hit us. And it was amazing. I was, as you know,
timing, but right, yeah.
Horrible timing, but also the best lesson I could have had as a young business owner. Very little overheads, not a lot of pressure. Had to focus on doing some art and other things, which is great. I make bronze artworks that have been selling, and that kept me afloat during that time. But it was tough to see, because there were a lot of other larger corporations in my field that kind of went under pretty quickly. So it was tough, but why not learn one of the hardest lessons straight away when you're getting into the game of travel? When the world shuts its doors, you got to make a plan. So it really tests you, and I like that. I think my life's pretty much been on that track my whole life. So we learn, we fail, we learn, we fail. So 2020 we launched. It's been going really well. Obviously, some trips had to be postponed, but it was a slow journey. But I feel now, however many years later, everything seems to fall into place, and you don't really realize the knowledge that you gain while you're gaining it, of course, until someone asks you a question or says, have you been to Kenya? How's the Masai Mara? I'd like to go on a boat in Chobe. Do you have any advice? And of course, you have so much information and advice to give. So it's been an absolutely wonderful journey. And I had my own little bucket list of sightings I wanted to see personally, things like a shoebill, mountain gorilla, elephant shrews, stuff like that, where it's not for everyone, but it was for me. And every time I made sure I was in a location that possibly had a species like that, I took full advantage to find these animals.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm already picking up, and this is the first time we've ever met, Cam. For the listeners and everybody, but you like the challenge, I think, and you have a very positive attitude. You're a cup half full guy. Take it and let's take it on and face it. And what can I learn from this? And let's keep moving forward, right? But
thanks, Jason. I don't think I was always like that. There was a time, I was young, still wet behind the ears type thing, and someone had a negative comment about me and whatever, and I freaked out and I was like, oh my gosh, why doesn't this person like me? I don't understand. Why is this happening to me? COVID and all these things. but that's life. I think I've really, really grown to understand, and it takes failing so many times to finally understand that every failure is such a good lesson. And, once another door opens, or a window, or even a crack in a door, and an opportunity presents itself and it works out, everything changes, and you look back and you go, okay, that's why that didn't happen, and that's why that didn't happen, and it all makes sense. And it happened so often to me through such a tragic time that I began to almost welcome it. It was weird. It was definitely a shift, but that's how I am. Absolutely love it. I'm trying to pass it down to my son and anyone else that I can. But you have to go through it. You really do, and come out the other side to understand. But again, I try and align myself with nature as much as I can, because for me, there's no greater lesson in understanding how things work, and going a little bit deeper into yourself and finding yourself out there. Happens more often than not. So, appreciate it, Jason. Thank you.
And Jason, you said glass half full. I can tell you that Cam is a glass all the way full kind of guy. So we do
overflowing.
So you've got a good system, and this is something that we can all learn a little bit from as we lead groups in different locations. But you pretty much have all the information out there. The communication's fantastic. Have a couple Zoom calls before the trip so we know what to expect. And when we talk to Jason and Carla, and we're going to get their podcast out, we've got an audio podcast with them.
Nice.
But when Jason and Carla told me about you, and then we got on the Zoom call, and you never, ever, ever, nobody that I know guarantees anything on a wildlife trip. And so one of the first questions, what are the chances that we're going to see a jaguar? Oh, we're going to see loads of jaguars. We're going to see so many jaguars, you guys are going to get tired of photographing jaguars. I'm like, man, I don't know that I would go there with a group, but it was definitely, you were absolutely certain. You were absolutely spot on. I wouldn't say you under-promised, because it sounded like it was going to be a good trip, but you definitely over-delivered in the
Thanks,
end.
Ron.
Is that kind of the way you go into everything, or were you just confident in that particular trip?
It's not everything, because it happens to be, such a special location, and after doing it for some time, you got to realize the patterns of nature, even though it's changing all the time. There's certain things there's certain things are slightly unknown. So we know the jags are there. We went during a good time, like right at the end of the driest part of the season. So the focus on the river from all animals and all species is high, and we had the right amount of days. So I knew we would see a jaguar, 100%. I didn't realize we'd see so many, and the proximity and cubs and all of those things came into play. And that's an amazing part of nature, is the unknown. It's probably some of the best sightings I've ever had on this last trip. And I think there's a part of what we do that, we're salesmen at the end of the day. We got to get people on these trips. I do it because I know the feeling I leave these trips with, and how full I am, my soul, my heart, everything is just full. I'm grateful. I know that everyone's going to leave a trip with at least feeling that, and I'm pumped for that. I'm excited. So I don't do it on all trips, but there are certain things I can sort of guarantee on certain times of the year. But also I am a big fan of sort of manifesting things. You put it out there enough and you play this game long enough, the results keep happening. So I, put it out there, it seems to happen. And just speaking about that, Amy's like, I want that photograph, Adventure Amy, I want to photograph early morning light of a giant anteater, but I'm like, geez, that's amazing. Now, I hadn't seen a giant anteater before up to that point. And she's like, yeah, but I want one with the pup on the back. like cradling its mother and whatever. I was like, wow, that's amazing. We just put it out there. And, on day 2, that's what we had. So, yeah, it's just moments like that where you got to laugh, but you also got to, things are happening around you that you might not understand. You just got to be in the moment and be excited and, make sure your batteries are charged so you get the image.
And you're not shooting in JPEG.
And you're not shooting in JPEG.
I'm sorry, Ron, I couldn't help it.
It's going to continue to come up.
Mark,
do you have anything?
I thought about it, and I thought, no, I got to let it lie this time. But I love that manifesting and thinking about it, putting it out there. Why not? It does happen. Dream the shot, dream the experience.
Yep.
And we haven't met before today, Cam. And very nice to meet you. Thank you for being on at this hour and telling us what the future has in store. I went on your Instagram today, and it's fantastic. Congrats on the huge
thank you.
362,000 followers. But I love there's so many videos that you have on there that, I just stopped, watched, rewatched, and I have questions about that are fantastic. The shoe
Thank
bill.
you.
Now we sometimes make animal calls on our podcast. The shoe bill, that's pretty dramatic. That's dubbed in, right? That's a roar dubbed in.
Okay. This is a very funny story. Let me say yes to start the story. Okay.
Okay.
So yes, so the shoe bill stork is first and foremost a phenomenal animal. It stands almost 5 foot tall. It's found mainly in the Mabamba swamps of Uganda, and it's unlike any bird. I mean, for any bird lover, for any nature lover, when you're staring, they got that death stare. When you're looking at that bird and that dinosaur is looking back at you, it's not like a bear, it's not like a lion. It's different because the bill and those eyes and the movements are so prehistoric. So yes, I filmed this shoe bill with a bunch of guys in the swamps. It was amazing, and I had posted it before, and we had good feedback, etc. And for those of you listening that don't know, the shoe bill stork, it has almost like a machine gun sound, impossible to recreate. So I'm not even going to try, and my family's fast asleep behind me. But if you Google it or YouTube it, you can get it. I mean, it's like a machine gun. It sounds like something's firing because the bill is so large. It's like 2 clogs smashing against each other. So it sounds like with a slight roar underneath that. So what I was doing, I was editing some videos the one day and playing around, and I was actually on safari with I don't know how much you guys know about rugby or are familiar with the game. It's like American football, but a lot tougher, no helmets, no padding for real men, And the Springbok captain is at the time was a client of mine, and we were on a safari and we got chased by a cow elephant. It was super distressed. I don't know why, on vehicle. And I happened to pick up this incredible audio of her just losing her mind and roaring. So I watched the shoe bill video and I slowed it down. I stabilized it. I was like, gosh, I remember the sound from this elephant. I wonder, and I pulled up the clip and I had them side by side and I put the audio over and I slowed it down. And the next second, this video came up of this shoe bill. It was actually just yawning silently. And then I put this roar over just for fun. I thought, gosh, let me see what people think of this. And I put it out there and obviously it went viral. It was very viral. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've just misinformed half the world about what a shoe bill sounds like. So in one aspect, I felt a bit bad, but the other one is I brought some really good attention to a bird that's losing numbers every day. So that was such a cool positive to that story. So yes, the sound was thrown in afterwards. It worked out really well. Not that the original sound's not terrifying. If you guys can go listen to the real one, it's terrifying. But I thought it was fun. So yeah.
That's cool. It's cool that you get to bring the attention to the bird in that way, and they do
Yeah,
look it. The bill looks wooden, right? And
yeah.
what a fantastic bird. But so there's so many on there. I don't want to hog it with my questions, but the mountain gorilla stuff is, it's always been in my mind's eye one of the most powerful encounters somebody who loves wildlife on planet Earth could have. And watching the
Yeah.
videos on your Instagram, the reels, the proximity of these silverbacks, one of them comes up and pounds his chest on the way by. And you can tell that you guys, I mean, obviously the brush is so thick, the openings in these cases are small, but are mere feet away. And I've heard from some people have had this experience or just researching online some of the behaviors to do, and as far as eye contact and submissiveness and stuff like that. But being there and, with the animals I study, I get conditioned to their behaviors and know how to interact. But those first few times, I can't imagine without being there in person, the heart rate and the experience that would be to be feet from them of such a magnificent, powerful animal in its home. Can you tell us a little bit what that was like, maybe the first time
Yeah, absolutely. My first gorilla trek, the trek itself was quite difficult, I won't lie. You're in a rainforest, so the evening before had been raining relentlessly. So the morning was dry, I mean, clear skies, but the terrain was so slippery, and we were on quite a steep incline. So the hike was about an hour and a half at the time, but straight uphill. So that was fun. And I remember the first family I ever saw was a family called Umubano. And at the time, they had 6 silverbacks in the one family, which is quite interesting. I think they still have 5 or 6 to this day. And, the feeling of seeing your first mountain gorilla in the mountains, and we're talking in the mist, in the sticks, is it's unbelievable. I mean, you could cut through the feeling through the air just before you get to them, because the guides have now told you guys, okay, cool. You get to a location and you've got your hiking sticks, and they say, guys, we need to put our hiking sticks down. Because these primates see it as like a threat. If they're going to fight with each other, they grab sticks, they grab objects. So that's why you got to put your hiking sticks down, and you put your masks on, and the masks are there primarily to avoid the human to gorilla transferal of any sort of diseases, because we share like 98% DNA with these mountain gorillas. So any common cold, any respiratory tract infection that we have, we could pass that on straight away. And it's funny, I only mention that because that's one of the questions I get most often. Like, this thing could tear your head off, but you're wearing a mask. Like, what's going on? I don't understand. And that's not about us. It's about them. We're protecting them. So yeah, when you're sitting from that animal, and it's not the size, it's not the fact that they could do real harm that gets you. I think the world has conditioned us to be top of the food chain as a species, and I think we've gotten really comfortable with that fact over so many years, decades and decades. So when you're in a position like that, it's more the intelligence that is intimidating to me. You're not sitting across from a cow, and nothing against cows, love them, This is a being that's looking at you up and down, figuring you out, and you can see it the moment you lock eyes. They know what's going on, and I think that's more part of the intimidation factor for me, is the intelligence. Whether it's intimidating or it's the beauty, it's all coming at you at once, and that's kind of overwhelming, but in the best way. I often refer to a gorilla trek as somewhat life-changing, and you can't explain it to someone who unfortunately hasn't had their first trek. You can't get that feeling across. Part of you does change, whether it's an appreciation or an understanding, or we all have our own emotions in different times like that. So it's a phenomenal experience. It's something I've been very blessed enough to do multiple times. I do many treks a year. I've got clients there right now. I'm super excited for them. They're about to make their way up to the mountain later today. They have no idea what to expect, and I know exactly what they're going to experience. So the gorillas are a superb animal to photograph. Whether it's a bucket list or something you try and go back for time and time again, you're not going to be disappointed. To answer your question, Mark, about silverbacks, they obviously, they're the kings of the jungle out there. They've earned their right, and they're actually really, really relaxed. Oftentimes, and what you saw in my video, that was a gorilla called Kigoma. He's part of the Kwisanga family, and he's part of two silverbacks, Lisanga and Kigoma. And basically, we found ourselves in quite a narrow opening in the jungle where our back's up against the brush. We physically can't go back any further. And we basically were stuck. And he decided to come up this pathway, and then he did the whole banging on the chest, which is quite cool because you know when it's going to happen for those of you that want to take a photo or film it, because what happens is they start like pursing their lips and they start actually inflating the air sacs in their chest, and you can hear the sound of the air going in. So it's a little whiny sound for a few seconds, like a and once they're full, then they go they bang on their chest, and yes, it's intimidating, but gosh, it happens so quickly. But it's also it's not for us particularly. It's also to let other gorillas know, or young blackbacks that are coming up, that this is where I am, because that sound like reverberates through the forest. Talking about it now, I just want to go back to Rwanda, but I'll be back there soon.
I've seen Ron do that. I've seen Ron, and then
Yeah.
But you could
I actually saw Ron do it at breakfast. I saw him do it. I saw him do it in the buffet queue to some guy that had been a bit abrasive towards the ladies in our group. He went straight up there, and his chest was pumping. He's like a silver front. I could see all the gray hair coming out, but he was pounding, and that guy had immediate respect going forward. So I believe you.
We got along good after that.
In your reel, when the gorilla did that, right before he did it, I noticed he kind of looked up to the side. So I didn't think it was directed at the humans. It was more of there's something off to the side that he's signaling to through the brush, right? Just for our listeners' sake, it didn't seem at all confrontational. It was more of a display of behavior to another gorilla, is how I thought of it, without being there, of course, and your expertise.
Yeah, it's just a family. Exactly. It's just, not to say it doesn't happen towards us. There's a language. They speak a language. So, if they are aggressive or not, aggressive is such a strong word in the situation, but if they're a bit agitated, they're going to let you know. So they'll go like just 3 times like that. And then cool, you back away straight away. They make a whining sound when they're eating and they're feeding and they're happy. And then one of the most common sounds you'll hear, it's almost like us old guys clearing our throat, but it's like a you do that. And that's them saying, all is okay. Like, I'm happy with you here. And they do it a lot. So, you get a really good briefing before you go up on your trek. And what's cool about the briefing is what they tell you you're going to hear, you hear it. the guides that have been up there for so many years are absolutely phenomenal. There's one called Emmanuel, who's a really good friend of mine. He's doing some amazing work in Rwanda, and he during some tough times, if you look at Rwanda's past, he and his family actually were hiding up in those mountains for a few months, living off the land, living amongst guerrilla families. So it's something I can't explain. I mean, he shows you how to live off the land, what you can eat, but he speaks to these animals and they speak back. So it's I mean, it's such a special connection. And it's not just gorillas, it just reminds us of our connection to nature in all aspects that sometimes I feel we lose sight of sometimes. So just being out there for me it's worth every single thing that I do. Coming back to the failures as well. Every failure I've probably had in my life, it doesn't come close to getting that on the other side, So yeah, very, very special location. And if anyone's listening that wants to go see a mountain gorilla, it's not the end of the world when it comes to finances. It's not the most expensive thing. You need to speak to the right people because you can do it and you can achieve that bucket list item without breaking the bank. You just got to know who to speak to, which type of accommodation. But the world's changing and we really want to connect more people to these types of experiences without, bankrupting them afterwards. So yeah, it's definitely, if it's on your list, you guys should do it.
Does the tourism, I assume the tourism around this subject in the mountain gorilla's case then helps support the conservation?
Massively.
Right.
Massively. Again, all the negative comments that I can sometimes get about, leave them alone. Why are you there? You're disturbing them. It happens. I mean, one of my videos went so viral. I think it had 118 million views, 4 million likes, and you can imagine how many comments. Thousands upon thousands of comments. Most positive, but a lot of negative. And it's more just sort of a misinformation, a little bit of ignorance, which you can't blame people for. People don't understand. They see this gorilla walking past, you're like, what the hell's going on? And the tourism in Rwanda, Uganda, and other parts of East Africa has ultimately saved these gorillas. You go back to Diane Fossey and the work she did, the decline in numbers was ridiculous. And the park's actually extending its borders as we speak right now, a kilometer all the way around, down. So the relocation of farmers has been done really well by the Rwandan government. They're being paid well. They're being housed really well, all from tourism. And the families are growing, the gorilla families. They don't always stick together. These silverbacks go out on their own. They've got to find new females, so they're always growing. The numbers have grown very, very, very well, and it's due to the tourism. Yeah, there's no other way. The tourists coming in are paying for the security, the guides that are with them every day, the trackers that find them every day. It's all funded on tourism income. And, it's changed Rwanda. The Rwandans that live there, they see the gorilla as, they put them right up here. It's everything. It's their bread and butter. It's their livelihood. It's their family at the end of the day. So it's not just seeing a gorilla when you're in Rwanda. It's this feeling of celebrating an animal all the time. And there's a love, there's appreciation, and you see it on the guides' faces, you hear it from the trackers. They are so excited. They've seen them every day. And that's another thing. They're not, out of all the families that are up there, only like 12 are habituated that people can visit, for example, depending, it could go up, could go down, depending on how it goes. But we are only allowed 60 minutes out of a 24-hour day to spend with a family. And that's limited to 8 people. Okay. So over time they've realized the tolerance towards humans and a time frame is 60 minutes, 8 people in 24 hours. So these animals are wild. They're left alone for 23 hours of the day. It's just for that 1 hour that they really don't mind you hanging around. They're very inquisitive. The youngsters can get quite naughty, and that's part of the fun. You never know what you're going to get. I've been kicked by baby gorillas many times. One of my female clients 2 years ago, she had a big mama gorilla like coming and stroking her hair and really looking at the hair and being quite fascinated. And she couldn't do anything. The female came up to her and just grabbed her hair, not in an aggressive way. She was like studying it. So there's these moments and encounters like that you can't, change her life, I can tell you right now. But yeah, tourism always at the top. If it's done the right way, it's going to save a species for sure, if not more.
Right. It's really important in areas like that for some of these species. I think that people realize that the tourism can have such a profound and positive effect when you say, like you say, done well. I mean, there's places that we've had other guests on for sharks, and where they were protected now because locals make more money off of tourism than they do harvesting them in those situations. But mountain gorillas being such a tremendous species of concern and one that is so close to us and worthy of such marvel. I mean, all species are, don't get me wrong, but they're so threatened, and it's important that the funding's there, that the locals shift those gears, right, and look at them differently. Tolerance is there, and protection and conservation. So, but again, it all boils down to, I just was so moved by the videos that you had, and what a privilege and it would be for any of those guests to have that opportunity.
Absolutely. No, you couldn't say it any better. It's a privilege. I think in these days, any moment spent with your boots on the ground in nature, in a park that's surviving and thriving, is a privilege. These are things we were given right at the beginning. They were free and on our doorstep, and we were living interconnected as one. So I tend to go down some wormholes sometimes thinking about that.
I was just feeling that
we save up our whole life now to get back into what was given to us for free, what's out there, outside of our doors. So, I think the goal ultimately for me is to move out of the city and back into nature in some form in the next few years. I travel a lot, but it's more about the calmness and the peacefulness that surrounds nature that does it for me. I'm like an 85-year-old living in a 35-year-old's body. I want peace and quiet. I want a chair on the stoop. I don't know if you call it a stoop or a porch. We call it a stoop. And I want my Swarovski binocs next to me, and that's it. See what I can find.
What about the sounds, though? The sounds of nature and your stuff. I mean, Africa has such powerful and different animal calls and sounds from birds to your clip from April 10th, 24 of 2 male lions roaring back and forth. That was awesome. Great audio. And just to watch them. And
Thank you.
That summarized the sound of that species so well.
That audio is caught on a cell phone at the time. We're just filming. Doesn't matter what you're filming that on. A lion's roar is a lion's roar at the end of the day. We're so privileged and we are so blessed. But to be in Africa, obviously we're very spoiled with the abundance of species that we have, and also just how unique they are. From a lion roaring to hyenas sort of whooping and laughing in the middle of the night. Each species is just so unique and different. And a lion's roar, there's nothing quite like it. Physically, because you can feel it. Your chest sort of vibrates at that distance. Absolutely. Same as a tiger getting upset and giving you a go. You feel it. It's incredibly intimidating. And again, I bring it back to the point that for me, it's that reminder that we think we're top of the food chain because we're on this big, shiny metal, loud, roaring vehicle, but it wasn't always like that. And it's nice to almost be put back in your place and understand, like, that's dangerous. The man fears lion. That's the way it's meant to be. And I appreciate that, man. I like being on foot. And that's what Monopools is all about when we get to discuss that location. But being on foot changes everything for me. And I encourage being on foot as much as possible on my safaris. You can't connect like that in any other way. So
your senses just firing at maximum, right? It's just the same when we walk in grizzly country, even if there isn't one in sight. Maybe we saw one yesterday, or you just know they're there. All your senses are far more alert than they are on any given other regular day. And that would make sense with so many dangers.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, wow.
Before we go into Monopool, though, Cam,
yeah,
you've done a lot of dream trips, and you do them routinely.
Yeah.
A question that we like to ask is what's your favorite or best ever outdoor encounter? Does not have to be photographic.
I was going to make a joke there, but I'll keep it clean.
It's a family show, but in the spirit of family show, yes, we know what you mean.
Yeah. I was on holiday with my mom, and
That's
lovely
not what
beach
I thought.
resort. And I was a young teenager, really discovering everything a young boy needs to discover about himself. And I walked out onto this beach, and it was a topless beach. I remember that. It was quite eye-opening for me as a young African boy, learning stuff about the world and nature and feminine beauty. So, that's something that happened that wasn't quite out in the wild, but it had a similar effect on me. But talking wild, it's interesting. I'm so blessed, and I get this question often, like, "What's the best thing you've ever seen?" And it's interesting because I almost sort of file them away per species. I've seen gorillas do unbelievable things. I've seen and I've filmed a male silverback gorilla carrying his newborn, which is quite rare to see. They don't spend much time with the newborns at all. And he walked, from me to my laptop distance away, it could smell him. He just walked past, one knuckle down while he cradled his baby in the other arm. That's a unique experience. We've gone to photograph birds on an island, had a humpback whale, a baby, swim up to us, and no one was expecting it, and basically just floated up to our side of a boat. It was like glass. The water was so flat, and it just locked eyes, and this thing was just looking at us and couldn't understand what was going on. It just came out of nowhere. No one was expecting this. We're photographing birds, and that's, these are the encounters that happen. I have to say things like the shoebill, for sure, Ethiopian wolves, chasing down an animal like that on foot, 14,000 foot above sea level, freezing temperature conditions, hardly any air to breathe, and you running with equipment in your hand to photograph these wolves that are obviously not just laying there waiting for you to photograph them. These are the type of experiences that I think I'll take to my grave for sure, as a highlight in my life. I'm no David Attenborough or anything like that by any means, but in our own way, the more you can connect, the more special it is. And gosh, there's almost too many stories to tell. But I'm very blessed. People may laugh, but sometimes the most exciting thing I've ever seen is a bird that I've never seen before. It's been on my list. I've pictured it. I've seen photos. I've heard calls. Never got to see it. And then one day, this little thing sitting on a branch in front of you. and it always flies away just before you pull the trigger on your camera. So it's
Like
those moments that make it for me.
Like a pygmy ferruginous owl? Or
Exactly.
ferruginous pygmy owl, yeah.
Those ferruginous owls, man. Gosh, that was Carla's one,
Yeah.
On that branch. I mean, we saw it
We
in
saw
an
it.
incredible forest. We were sweating bullets, and I mean, the hum. I can still hear that and feel that hum of that forest, that jungle. And then there's this little owl sitting there, and the next second, it's gone.
Gone.
But we saw it.
It was about 2 feet away from Carla.
Oh.
Right on this branch. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I know I didn't answer that with a straight answer, but I feel like there's almost no straight answer.
You have more
each
answers
species.
than a lot of people have. And that's a good thing. That's not a negative.
Okay, good. Yeah, we got a lot to appreciate out there, and there's a lot to be grateful for. So anything. The first time you hear a leopard calling, the first time you see leopards mating, it's nuts. I mean, I remember the first time I saw like 40 hyena hunting together, actively hunting, because people are like, oh, they're scavengers. They get a really bad rep out here in Africa, and they're not. They hunt more than they scavenge. And lions actually scavenge more from hyenas than vice versa, or the other way around. So it's seeing animals truly in the most beautiful form that gets me. Like you see a hyena walking down the road, you're like, oh, spotted a hyena, that's amazing, love it. But when you see a pack of them or clan of them intimidating a lion or something off a kill, there's nothing like that. Like there's not. I mean, we are so privileged. I mean, I just got goosebumps saying it because I can still hear it. You can feel it. It's palpable every single time. So yeah, gosh, good question. But you'll have me speaking for 3 hours on this one.
It's all right. We can chop it up.
Yeah.
Hey, Cam, if you want to, you can close out on that window of the image behind you. Those that are watching this on YouTube, you're going to see an image on Cam's screensaver. And one of the things that we wanted to talk about tonight is Monopool, because it's a location that we're going to be taking people to in the future.
Yeah.
And Jason has been to Africa. Mark, have you been?
I have not. No.
And Jason, you guys
Not
were
yet.
in vehicles all the time, right?
Yeah, we were in vehicles the entire time, and even that, first time going, it to me, it's just like Alaska. Once you go, you're like, oh, I get it. How fast can I get back? So yeah,
Oh, yeah.
sure.
So the magic of Monopool and the reason that Cam chose that location for us, and I was going to go this fall, and I'm not able to go, but the trip is still happening.
Yeah.
But tell us about Monopool and why that location is kind of magical, especially for a photographer.
Well, I mean, location aside, photographically, I find it to be, I mean, we all know golden light and golden hour and unobstructed views and depth of field and all these fun things that we try and capture and create. Monopools is everything for a photographer, all wrapped into one. So the beauty of Monopools is it's quite a seasonal park. So take away the fact that the animals are completely habituated to people walking. People have been walking since like the 60s, actively every single day. So your lion prides, your leopards, your buffalo, your elephants, everything out there is completely comfortable to a certain point, of course, with humans being on foot there. They encourage it. It's one of the only national parks that I know that is open to the public, where anyone, any Joe Soap can drive his vehicle there, enter the gate, sign a waiver, and walk out of his vehicle in the wilds of Africa. So that in itself is so incredibly unique these days. And Mark mentioned it earlier about all your senses coming alive. I bring it back to saying, people are, we are so disconnected, with the world we live in today, from nature, and we're safe. Like I say, we're the top of the food chain. We're this, we're that. You get to a place like Monopools, you get off a vehicle with your gear and you walk. Now very quickly you find that you've walked a couple miles away from your vehicle. There is no vehicle around. And suddenly everything changes. Now you've encountered a bull elephant in the distance and you're making an approach to this animal. There is no vehicle. There is no safety net. Obviously you're with incredible guides. These guides have been walking their whole lives. And you judge the wind. You do things that we used to do. Now you're conscious about every step you take. You're conscious about your foot placement. Are there dry leaves underneath you? Are there dry twigs? Where's the soft sand? Everything comes into play. And not only are you experiencing all of this in one go, and we're being allowed to use all of our senses again, because you're going to smell things you've never smelled before. You're going to hear things you've never heard before. It could be a screaming baboon in the distance. It could be a tree squirrel alarm calling at a lion nearby. All of these things come into play all at once. And that alone is an experience that I love. So you're on foot. So now we're talking about things like eye-level shots, low-level shots, and it allows photographers to do what we love, or at least in my opinion, is to be creative again. You can now position yourself behind a branch or some bushes or whatever to create an effect. You've got a lot of freedom as a photographer now to show what sets you apart from another photographer in terms of creativity. So all of those things wrapped into one is Monopools. The time that we do our trips to Monopools is sort of mid to late September, which means it's the driest parts of the year for that park. So Mana means four, and pools. So basically you focus on 4 pools in the area that retain water after most of the water in the area is dried out after the summer rainfall. And the game just congregates in those areas. So now you've got the ground. I don't know if you can see here, for example, but you've got this ground that is incredibly dry. There's nothing. It's sand. And you've got a tree called a winter thorn, which bears fruit and leaves in winter, which is the dry season, whereas everything else has died off. So the elephants focus on these trees specifically. And Monopools has quickly become famous for elephants doing something very, very unique in the wild, and that's standing on their back legs to actually reach the winter thorn pods or the anapods. So you could see it. These big bulls, they start rocking, and then they position their feet really close together, like they're standing on a ball or something, and then they launch back onto their hind legs. And I mean, seeing an elephant do that in person is unbelievable. Seeing an elephant do that a few meters away from you on foot is something I can't explain. And what happens, as you guys know, the drier it is, the dustier it is. So as soon as the sun starts to set in that late afternoon in the forest, the lighting is absolutely phenomenal. You can't create images like that in many places in the world these days. So Monopools it's not just a place for photography, even though it's going to blow your mind photographically. It's a place for you to connect to nature unlike anything else in Africa. And that's why we focus on this destination. And we couple it with Wangi, of course, in Zimbabwe, which is also home to thousands and thousands of elephants and other species. But it's a very special trip for sure.
And we'll put a link to that trip in the podcast, in the show notes. And then, of course, we'll have it on our tour page. And it is, again, a location that we're going to be taking groups to in the future. this
Yeah.
year. And in September is tough for all of us because we all love the Western game and the rut, the elk rut, the moose rut, and the deer rut. And so the fall is tough, but for something completely unique and an opportunity to be on foot, I think that's the biggest draw for me. The opportunity to be on foot with species like that, and to be able to utilize the dry atmosphere and the dust in the air. And
Yeah.
it's no different than when we have our fire season, prairie fire season, wildland fires, the light that gets created because of that smoke filter in
Mm-hmm.
the atmosphere is no different than the dust.
Yeah. Can imagine.
When I'd take kids' senior pictures, I would have somebody go drive behind them, kick up the dust, and then
Yep.
photograph them backlit. And that's exactly the kind of thing that you have the opportunity here, just the animals kicking up the dust around them. And to be able
Exactly.
to have those kind of conditions that create that same light and same effect. And
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of the time, these bull elephants, especially the big boys that are climbing on their back legs, are teaching the younger bulls as well. And so you'll often find a big bull like his name's Boswell. He's become known very famously as Boswell from the circus, just because he's always on his back legs doing tricks. And the young bulls are just sort of we call them like almost like satellite bulls, just hanging around. As soon as he's on his back legs, he breaks a huge part of the tree off, then they all come and feed around him. So it's interesting as you progress and as you visit monopools more and more, and you start to see younger bulls starting to learn, and you actually see that progression of knowledge that's being handed down amongst these wild animals. So it's stuff like that you can't really ever get tired of, you know. But yeah, September. Just touching on that, we got July, August, September, October. If it's a rutting thing on your end, we can adjust to accommodate, of course. Even if it's by a few weeks, you're going to have the same dry monopool. So I just like to go when it's bone dry. But 3-4 weeks before that, it's not going to make a difference. I promise you.
yeah,
I would sacrifice a elk rut or some deer rut or whatever it took to do a trip like that. So
I was going to say that I'm like, if you can sacrifice it for one season, it's going to be well worth it. Like, it's
then you might find yourself sacrificing it more often too. That's
yeah.
That's the thing with Africa. I say to every client, they're like, it's my first time here. I'm like, you'll be back. I have no doubt.
Well, sounds amazing. So what do you do for, if you're on the ground, what do you do for accommodations? If people go on this trip, where are they staying at night? Are they tenting it? Or are they in a lodge? Are they in cabins? Just if people, curious minds want to know.
Yeah. So I like to do a mix of it's not glamping. It's depending on the location you go to. So the Monopools trip, you're in sort of luxury tents. We're completely surrounded by wild. You'll have wild dogs. You'll have lions coming through camp, elephants every day coming through camp. It's unbelievable in the best way. So you wake up, you look at the main area, you just check left and right, everything okay, cool. There's a bull elephant by the pool, drinking out the pool. I can make it to breakfast. So you basically walk there, and that's part of the beauty. So we completely immerse our guests in the experience all the time. The camps are beautiful. The food is fantastic. There's things like Wi-Fi. You're not completely disconnected, but if you want to be, you can. So our camp that we use on the Monopools trips is literally on the bank. And when you have a look at the itinerary link, you can look through the photographs of the camps and the accommodation. But you're on the banks of the Zambezi. So you're hearing hippos calling throughout the night. You are seeing hippos throughout the day. You're seeing elephants cross the water in front of you. And this is just while you're relaxing back at camp. There's no, you haven't gone out looking for any good light or anything. This is just constant. So, I mean, I watched, just thinking about it now, I watched a young lioness who had teamed up with an older male that had crossed from Zambia into Zimbabwe. And she was actively hunting a troop of baboons for about 45 minutes, like running past our vehicle, left, right, climbing up a tree, jumping down the tree. It was unbelievable. And that's all on the river bank with this beautiful Zambezi running behind her. So that's where we put you. That's where you spend 3 nights, 4 days on the ground, exploring the area. And even our next camp after that, where we move into Wangi, is you're under a beautiful sort of canopy of trees, and the pool there gets visited by wildlife every day. I saw a friend of mine post a couple of weeks ago, the lions were drinking out the pool. People are standing in the lodge just having a gin and tonic, and the lions are drinking out the pool. So it's one of the things I do with my business and my company is I make sure that the accommodation is obviously good, if not great. But a big thing for me is that you are connected to your surroundings. I don't want you to feel like you're in a hotel. If you opened your eyes, you wouldn't know where you are in the world. You're going to know you're in Africa by what you hear, what you smell, what you see at all times. And then that's the beauty of why we do this. So, take a look at the link. All the information's there. The lodges are there. I'll be hosting the trip personally. We've got space for like 5 couples, 5 groups of mates, a group of 10, however you want to break it up. But yeah, it's wonderful. We have the camps to ourselves exclusively. There's no other guests joining. The vehicles are private. Our time is completely our own. If we want to focus on backlit shots, that's what we do. If we want to focus on anything else, that's what we do. So we kind of have free reign to just enjoy everything in front of us and make the most of it.
Hey Cam, on that second part of the trip, is that in the safari vehicles, or is that walking again as well? Or
the second part of the trip is a mix, so it's vehicles and walking, just to give a different perspective. And we actually finished the trip with a trip to Victoria Falls, because if you're coming this way, it's right there. So those of you that haven't seen Vic Falls, it's a beautiful time to do it. And so the trip's divided into a 6-night and an 8-night itinerary. If you want to do the 8-night, basically we celebrate Monopools and Wangi by going to see the magnificent falls, rest up before everyone flies back home.
Exciting. I'm going to definitely have to do this trip.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to have you back on, because I think we barely scratched the surface. It's like,
it sounds like it. Yeah,
it's like the iceberg. I
was about to say, guys,
top, but
no, there's so much to this. We could literally break this up by country and the experiences you could have there. And I don't know how we can do it, but one thing, and this coming back to the beginning of the podcast, is talking about making things happen. Anything's possible, and I can see all 3 of you there being here on the ground. Absolutely, we can make it happen. It's not impossible.
Where do people fly into?
So for this one, you fly into Victoria Falls Airport in Zimbabwe. This particular trip, I think it starts the other way around. So you can actually fly into Harare, Zimbabwe. You fly direct. I think you can fly direct to Harare, depending on which airline. And yeah, from Harare, we literally arrive as a group. Hello. Very excited times. We get on a smaller bush plane and we fly straight into Monopools. Like straight into Monopools. So the last time I landed there, we had a pack of wild dogs just off the runway. So, it's that type of place. Once you touch ground and you like your boots hit the dust, you're there. Anything can happen.
How many times have you been there?
This will be my third time in the recent years. Zimbabwe, plenty. I've split my time up. As you can imagine, the year goes by very quickly. So I try and divide myself amongst Zimbabwe, Rwanda, South Africa, East Africa, and then recently more and more often Zambia. Absolutely love Zambia. And again, that's a whole nother conversation, as impressive. So, once a year for sure, I got to get out there.
Yeah, and yeah, I'd love to hear more about the mountain gorillas too. Just
anytime.
The specs around it, right? How it's done. What's the straight up approach? Where do we fly to? How many days?
It is so simple. It is really so simple. What I do with my gorilla trips now is you don't need more than 3 days in Rwanda. You really don't. It's so streamlined, and it's such an incredible country. Rwanda in its own, from where they've gone 30 odd years ago to where they are now, will blow your mind. They're like the Singapore of Africa, honestly. And that's me as an African saying that. You will not find a piece of litter or garbage anywhere, no matter where you look. It's one of the cleanest countries I've ever seen anywhere, and I've traveled the world. The people are super accommodating. Hospitality is unbelievable. And 3 days. So what I normally do is we'll either finish an African itinerary for clients with Rwanda as a big finish, or they could start and they could work their way south through the southern African countries. But it's you don't need to spend 2 weeks there. You just add it to another itinerary, and it's a match made in heaven.
I like matches made in heaven.
Yeah, I do. Why not?
Well, Cam, we've exceeded our hour. We like to stick to around an hour, but I think again, I know outside of making you get up at 3-4 o'clock in the morning, we can do that next time. I'm not. No, I like it. Don't worry, guys. Well, we greatly appreciate it, and again, had a blast in Brazil with you, and immediately wanted to. You gave me a hard time about my love for wildlife and how have I never been to Africa, and so we wanted to kind of start to put this together, and it just didn't work out this year. But we're going to get people to you, and then we're going to get people over there in the future as well with us. Absolutely. I can see this group hosting keen travelers to Africa in the near future, and then every year. Sorry, guys, because I've been telling you, once you come here, it's kind of done for you. So we'll make sure your first time is special, and and then the doors open up. Like I say, we've got South Africa, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Namibia, Zambia, Uganda, Ethiopia. Doesn't matter. And we're just a little air hop away from each one of these countries. It's almost like a European thing, but there's different species in each, and the setting that these animals are in. You can say, yeah, I've seen a lion before, but you haven't seen a lion crossing the delta, swimming through the delta. You haven't seen lions hunting elephants in the deserts of Namibia. It changes every time. So, you guys will definitely come out here. I'm super excited to be part of this. I appreciate the opportunity to jump on and just to chat to your listeners and your followers. Africa is a beautiful thing, and it's not just Africa. I think nature in general, and the more people we can inspire to connect over time, is a job well done in my book. So that's the goal ultimately.
Yeah, it's amazing to be the privilege and to be grateful to be the conduit for so many people to have those experiences and develop
Absolutely.
that
I feel
appreciation.
so blessed to be able to do that. It's one of my top things to be grateful for. I get to introduce people to, gosh, sorry. I thought Ron was drinking a beer there for a second, and I'm like, it's 5:30 in the morning. Gosh, look, I am way behind. I completely forgot about the time difference. Sorry, guys. For those listening, it wasn't a beer; it was a water. Okay, I don't know if I'm allowed to say beer. It was an African water. But yeah, I'm very grateful to be able to, no one's really said conduit before, but I really like that. Just helping people connect to something I'm so passionate about is such a blessing. And yeah, I'm going to die a happy man one day, guaranteed.
Awesome. Well, the passion shines through, right? And if we can follow our passion, then, learn from the failures, but the glass is, as Ron said, full. So it's been fantastic to hear some of your stories, to skim the surface and to meet you for the first time and to see on your Instagram, and people watching on YouTube, which we encourage people to do, will have seen some of Cam's images and videos through the conversation as well. Well, you can see it, and I know JG, our producer, would have put it on there, but Cam Scott _wild on Instagram is where you can find him, and you can find more information at beyondthewildpodcast.com as well. And we look forward to bringing you more of this exciting content. And Cam, seriously, man, the first today, you are in tomorrow. It's now what, 5 a.m.? Where'd we get to?
5:30 a.m. Thursday, the 6th of February. It's a beautiful day to be alive.
Yes, thank you for starting your day with us. Jason and Ron, thank you for ending your day with us. And to all of your listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Beyond the Wild podcast. We'll talk to you again soon.
And that's a wrap for another episode of Beyond the Wild podcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Pictureline.com, your online source for everything photography, and Canon USA.